Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Growing Up Alien. This one is sort of another having a conversation with an alien, and I hate to use that word when I talk about Eeka because he's not, he's just a guy. So, but anyway, for the algorithms of our computer and internet systems, I'll use that term. But this one is really the elephant in the room conversation, and we've been putting it off for a while simply because Eeka and I have had a really hard time trying to figure out how to even talk about this in a way that wouldn't be odd or confusing. Yeah, so it's kind of challenging. We decided to break it up into two sections. So the first will be about patriarchy and what it means to be a man, basically, on Earth, so a Terran here, versus what it is like to be a man on Era. And then the second one we'll talk about women, and I'll have Semjase come forward on that one. So what it's like to be a woman. Um, so firstly, Eeka just wants to state when it comes to something like this that he's not some icon of manliness or what is like. He's just the resident person we can use here. He wants to be clear about that. And I just said, no, look, he was very uncomfortable. He's, I'm not going to step forward and tell people like, no, I'm like, you don't have to step, we're not going to step forward and tell people what to think or do. And that's not what we're doing here at all. We're really just trying to have a conversation and share some of the cultural differences between Terran societies. And again, even saying that, there's billions of people here. So the same goes for Era. There's billions of people there. So what is a society? What do they do? So we'll just try to take some of the iconic, overarching type of concepts that you could probably use in a very generic sense here to kind of bring to light what I was telling him, some of the highlights, I think, the real glaring differences between our society on Era and the one here on Terra and Earth. And see, the thing is, a lot of this, well, what we came up with is it really looks like you're seeing the fruits of the conquest that happened on Earth. You're really seeing beautiful, ugly, well, ugly hybridization between the Nebu Gray and the Draconian reptilian. And it's being merged together in a cauldron, like witchcraft, to degenerate the humanoids on this planet. And they were extremely successful in doing this. So I think the first thing that we both want to kind of bring forward here, and in some of this thinking that we have is also similar to that which is put forth by other off-planet humanoids as well. So I just want to kind of double check a lot of stuff. And, definitely he's on board with that to make sure that, the people on Earth can get, because I mean, honestly, like what he says and what I say, like, what do you do with that? So if I can find and locate evidence from other off-planet cultures that kind of vindicates what we're talking about here, I think that kind of gives it a little more gravity and weight. Anyway, so we don't really have any of these, misogynistic or sexist or whatever you want to call it. These are all human words on our planet. It just doesn't happen there. We understand it as existing. It does exist in other cultures on other planets. It does exist, upstairs in the different galaxies. There's a real problem up there, obviously, right? So the first thing that I think kind of highlights is a conversation we had several months ago, actually. And I wrote it down because the thing is, I never write any of this stuff down. So we have our conversations and I forget we even had them and he forgets we had them. And honestly, most of our conversations are completely idiotic and there's nothing of interest in any of them, to be honest. That's like every once in a while, he's laughing. Something interesting does occur. Usually they're kind of fanned into existence by somebody asking a question or having an experience. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll ask him, and so for us, and Eeka and I had this conversation because I'm supposed to have a child at some point, right? And I don't really want to. So I do, well, I want a child, but not having one. And I said, well, we could just, have it in an incubator like we can do on our planet. And he's like, well, no, like, and I knew already the answer. And it's like, well, it's like, no, it isn't great to do that. Yeah, you lose, I don't know, a little je ne sais quoi, let's just call it that. That happens in the genetics of the child. So doing it the old-fashioned way, the natural way, is much preferred. That is when it's done correctly, as opposed to incorrectly, which is what we're going to talk about. So this is a concept of genetics, and entropy versus negentropy in the initial seeding of the child. So there is a creative resonance, a massive creative, energetic burst of activity that occurs when negentropy is done correctly. So the mating, right, of a man and a woman is an energy frequency match. So before we even think about uniting, it's not a business deal. And if you look at some of your, marriage ceremonies that they have here on Earth, it's really kind of sad, very, very, very sad, almost grotesque in some ways. So ours is very carefully planned, and DNA matters, and the match of the partners matters greatly. You don't settle. That's a really bad idea. It's like, that's a really bad idea. And he was just giving me some. It's almost like what was he's talking about, like, um why settling and lowering your standards, which I think a lot of people here on Earth are told to do. That's something you should never. I mean, it's just common sense, I think, at this point. He's like, so he's explaining, okay, you pay. It's like he's like, yeah, you go to paint your house, and you buy the cheapest, lousiest paint that just happened to be in the store at that time because you didn't want to wait for the really good paint to come into the store. So, what's going to happen, right? This lower quality paint that you chose at this time, and you knew you were making a bad decision when you chose it, doesn't really, you put a lot of work into it, don't you? Right? You have a commitment now. You're buying paint for a house. So you paint your house. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of effort. Not something you want to do. And it wasn't even cheap, even though it was cheap. So before you know it, the paint fades, it chips, blah, blah, right? Now, had you made the correct choice the first time and not settling for the garbage paint, it would have been the same amount of work, right? The same effort, the same commitment, a little bit more money, but the paint stays and you don't have to do it again. And ultimately, in the long haul, you saved money because you don't have to keep buying paint, not labor, and all that. So that's what he was kind of talking. He's with me now. And that's what he's trying to describe, trying to be very, very, diplomatic. Like, that's his very diplomatic. I don't want anybody to hate me. He's like, no one's going to hate you. Some people probably do. And that's life, isn't it? I'm sure there's some Draco out there. And in fact, that both of us are enemy combatants on this planet, right? And there's a lot of people that hate us. So anyway, the mating is done very, very carefully. The choosing of a partner is done very, very carefully. For the analogy that we had there, you don't want to miss that point. So what happens is the frequency match of the mating creates a powerful, like a vortex type dynamic, a torsion field, right? Some people call this a kundalini. Like, if you look into Indian literature, they came close, not quite. They didn't quite get it. I don't know if any Earth people, Earth people, but I mean, I'm sure there's some Earth people who get this for sure. But I mean, I don't know if there's any religions or cultures that really, really get this. I don't think they're missing the secret sauce, let's just say. So he was talking about, again, is each of these energy systems. So you're bringing together two energies, a man and a woman. So the energy systems are uniting in a physical form as they are brought together. And this is a powerful reaction. So what he was then explaining, you're saying, yeah, so this powerful reaction can be one that is beneficial for a society and race, and one that is not beneficial for a society and race. Now, when we put the earth culture into this mix, the desire of your occupiers, cabal, I'm just going to say occupiers, have to be careful they're on YouTube because the occupiers are watching. They're like, they're not happy with us. So the occupiers really wanted it to be to the beings, the race, Terrans. If you think about the sustainability and furtherance of the genetic material for this race of humanoid is very, very, very bad. But for the occupiers who are trying to create a race of slaves, it was very, very, very good. And I'm going to explain a little bit more of what we came up with today. I think it really, I don't know, seems to make sense to us too anyway. So this energy is released by the mating, a proper mating, a negentropic mating. And energy is released into the ether field, and we match our DNA based on its resonance, its frequency, its ability to come together to create something very nice, to create something. And this is not like superficial. We're trying to further our race. That's kind of a common sense thing, if you would think. You want to create new life in your species that furthers the sustainability of your race. That makes sense, doesn't it? Except on Earth, where it's the opposite for the reasons that I just mentioned. So Eeka and I, we've been childhood friends. It was one of those things that we just came along that way. We've had many, many lifetimes together. And we have another one coming up, which is going to be better than this. Well, I don't know. Maybe this one hasn't. We'll see where this one goes. But we're souls, what they call a soul split, whatever that means. I'm not 100% sure. What does souls look like? Consciousness is when you're out of your body. When you're in your, basically what they always say is that the real state of being, which is in the non-physical state, which is as an energy field. I'm not going to tell you what that's like. I know a lot of people, and I'll be honest, many ETs can't even tell you what that's like. But you have a lot of your gurus that seem to have all the answers to that. But if that floats your boat, go for it. We're not going to tell anybody what to believe or follow. So not all of these DNA matches in breeding situations on Era specifically are soul splits. They don't have to be. That just happens to be one way that which many beings on many different planets sometimes happens, right? So anyway, this is not an ego-based breeding thing, which is a problem. Well, in any ego-based, exactly, and Eeka's just saying now, like any breeding based on ego is going to be entropic and very bad for the species. So what you want to have is a match that is so perfect, it feeds off of itself to manifest higher levels of energy in a type of infinity loop that can harvest or release tremendous flows of electromagnetic energies. And that is what happens when this is done correctly in the negentropic form. So that is what he said when we were having this conversation. Not only when I was talking to him about it, but also when another person had asked this question. So he repeated it because I forgot really. Well, I didn't forget. Like I have the essence of it in my mind because we talk telepathically. But then putting it into the sort of like scientific or physics words, then, he was able to do that. So what I mentioned there is typical of Era, of the Pleiadians on Era. Again, this is something we learned from the Arcturians. They helped us with some of these issues. Because one of the questions that a lot of humans ask is, why are they so good looking? Well, I don't know, because, good looking is up to a being, So frequency matters more than what someone would consider, of course, well, yeah, he's saying like, well, attraction is frequency. So I'm going to say that when the humans begin to meet, ETs. Now, I'm not talking about those amongst you who are watching the show just like me and him, and you know that you guys already have your extraterrestrial match, your mate. You know you have one, and you're going to be meeting with them. That's separate. You guys are already matched. But for those people who are not matched and would be looking for having a long-term relationship with an extraterrestrial person, someone who's not born on Earth, frequency is everything. Resonance is everything. So, you know, we had a video where we talked about this. I had Zoe on with these regressive type Terrans who seems to think that, you know, well, I'll be honest, you know, women from the Pleiades, generally, you know, era are very, very attractive, according to standards here on Earth. Again, not for everybody. It depends on what you're looking for, but they're not objects to be purchased. That's something we don't ever think about. And there's a lot of people, I think, who might be in for a rude awakening to assume that these very attractive and we're going to be very careful, and we've been very careful with placing, and this is one of the things he was really nervous about, me coming here, which is why I ended up which is one of the reasons why I was undercover for a very long time, suppressing all that is feminine about me, which is difficult when you're 5'2" and 100 pounds. But I suppressed all that for a very long time because I was already married and I wasn't interested in any kind of relationships here on this planet. Why would I? I'm already married. I'm not interested. Now, some people are. That's whatever floats your boat. But for us, it's just me and him. So I had to be very careful. And you know, I knew, and they had reminded me about all the dangers on this planet. So we are very careful when we place our females on this planet, because we know full well what occurs here, unfortunately. So our women are going to look for men that resonate on a frequency. With that said, that's just the way nature works. You will want negentropy because you want your society or race or species to persist. And I'm going to talk about that in a bit, about a race that's probably well known to our viewers that ended up really going tits up, let's just say, when it came to messing around with genetics. So the pairing, as it should be done, in a perfect union. Whatever energies are produced by this pairing, it can be negative, as it so often is on Earth. Negative or entropy-based pairings will create discord, as you see around you. This energy is put into the DNA of the child. There's actually, curiously, even though this is extraterrestrial genetics I'm talking right now, there has been some papers written here on Earth talking about echoes of damaged psychological thought patterns that are then placed into the child. So parents that are psychologically damaged in some way, or carrying some kind of, a lot of people call it like ancestral trauma, blah, blah, whatever you want to label it, that actually gets put into the child's DNA. Where, you know, why is everybody all fucked up? Excuse my Gaelic. That's why it's in your DNA. so now you know. So essentially, dysfunction is passed down lineages on this planet, or on any planet, if that's done. So if we're looking at Earth, was this intended? Yes. So what we're trying to do here, Eeka and I, is create sort of a blueprint to the topic at hand, which is the intent of patriarchy as an entropic, deconstructive breeding program to basically eradicate the Terran, the human on Earth as you know it. What you see now in the majority of Terrans, again, not all, is the, excuse me, the manifestation of, again, centuries of entropic breeding. And it's very sad. So, not if you're the occupier, it's actually perfect because that's what they wanted, was a race of snack food slaves, people who are very passive, people they could manipulate. So that is why these occupiers created all of this violence and aggression and just, soup of nastiness. You know, when we think about reproduction, because that's how you make more of your species, it isn't a matter of flippancy, which is what you've been told, I think, in many ways here on this planet. Or it has also been turned into a form of greed, or into a form of objectification, into a form of just use. And this is a throwaway planet. We don't have this kind of trash or garbage that is produced on this planet. And all that is done on purpose, by the way. It's to make everyone view themselves as trash. Then you're easier to control. When we look at breeding on Era, and we like I said, we do not have a patriarchy. There is a bit of a reverence. I wouldn't call them, because the matriarchy would be the opposite end of the structure, which again, that is not a balanced system. You want neither. We can do it. When we talk about the women, when the feisty women, that's what we'll talk about that. But and when we talk about Semjase, we'll love that. So when it comes to co-creation, because it's not creation, it's co-creation. The only way you can make someone is through co-creation, obviously. I said it's not as good when you do it in an incubator. Not as good. So it is done, but it's not as good. So the female is what Eeka was explaining. The female is half of the important structure of creation and co-creation. There's half and half, right? The male and the female hold the power equally, and neither can waver, as then negentropy once again is put into entropic productive state. So if there is a breeding situation, which sadly you see quite a bit on this planet, where there is, how can I even describe this? How would you, I'm going to ask him how he wants to describe this diplomatically. I guess the female, I'm just going to do it quickly to get through this. The female is property, basically, as a purchase, as an object, like a toaster. You want to make some toast, you get yourself a toaster, right? You want to have some hanky-panky, you find yourself a female to do the hanky-panky with, just like you do a lawnmower, you get a lawnmower to mow your lawn, you get a woman to mate. That's basically the way it's been done here on this planet. That is very, very bad when it comes to the sustainability of any species. Not only the fact that it's just bullshit when it comes to, obviously, that's a pretty nasty way to live, unfortunately. So he says, therefore, the male and female must be balanced in energy and in their union. This is echoed in Irish culture, as those who know me, my friends know me. I'm actually an Irish professor. I have a PhD in Irish studies. So if you go back to the old Irish culture, when they were talking about breeding, they always would say you would breed like to like. And it was very, very entrenched in their concept, right? So this whole idea of like a 70-year-old guy and a 30-year-old woman that you see on Earth is very frowned upon anywhere. So it's just not a good idea. It should be like, and that's as the Irish had said, and that's the way we look at it. It should be like to like. So that's the balancing, because then the energy that is released, which is common sense, will be negentropic and produce wonderful results. So when they unite, the male and female, in a negentropic experience, the results are mind-blowingly powerful, literally. They actually will, it's almost a scalar way. It will resonate into the ether. It is that powerful, which they know here, by the way, I'm not, Any of the cabal watching, they know exactly what I'm talking about now, and they ain't gonna like it because they know this. Which is why they fight so powerfully to make sure that humans don't breed like this. Because if they did, we wouldn't be talking this today and we wouldn't be here today. So they did everything they could to make sure that this didn't happen. So when Earth humans think of beauty, this is it. It manifests. So it is the perfect divine level matching of two beings in their own balanced state. Of course, this perfect union maintains the balance when it falters, which it will, as none of us are perfect in 4D, and that's something he wanted to mention again. The unity, the energy transfer between a man and a woman that are involved in this kind of a romantic, if you want to call it that, experience is the infinity symbol. And it's a love frequency that rolls back and forth. There's not a give, the give and take is so fast, you couldn't even notice it. So we're not talking the way you might hear it here on Earth, where it's like, you do this, they do that, you do very slow and very almost measured in a negative way. Ours is super fast, and our relationship is predominantly telepathic, which is what humans can actually do, by the way. I mean, we're human, so having a telepathic relationship, and for those of you who have an extraterrestrial relationship, you know what I'm talking about. And unfortunately, this is what spurned a lot of these questions are people on Earth who have an Earth relationship when they're very disappointed. And it's very sad and it's very difficult. And I don't like neither of us here are trying. Eeka and I are not trying to. I mean, we feel your pain. But neither of us are trying to give you relationship advice. That is really something you have to do yourself. None of us would ever try to say that. It's just sad for us to know that a lot of relationships on this planet are vapid and painful. and now I think there's a lot of regret. I'm going to be honest. When the ETs come, there's going to be a lot of regret and there's going to be a lot of separations. There's just no way. No way. If it rolls that way. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm just thrilled that I never, ever got in a relationship on this planet, because that's yeah, that would be a big no. So no, that's like nope. So yeah, I mean, I can't even put that into words. How amazing relationships on Era are. I mean, not just Era. I mean, I'm sure the Andromedans and all those people all have a similar experience. Not everyone either. You have to always be mindful that not every person that you're going to meet from another planet is a good person, by no means. So the humanoids from Earth that are being sold into sex slavery are going up there somewhere, right? So there's somebody up there that ain't right. So anyway. Oh yeah, I'm just mentioning we don't have porn on our planet, by the way. That please, I can't even, I don't think you even have to explain that. I mean, that's just about as regressive as you can. If you really want to sink your, I mean, and that's why it's there, created by the cabal, the occupiers to, yeah, just degenerate humanity, which is the goal. So, yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, the Earth, if nothing happened here, the Earth humans would have been gone. Not a sustainable society, totally toasted. No existence here. So this is the beauty that we're talking about. It's a resonant state. And of course, that resonance will be expressed physically as well. So you can have, let's say, and many people may discover this when they leave the planet, when we finally, again, we've been interstellar since the 1940s, folks. If you hear anybody talk about interstellar, like, oh, when the humans become interstellar, we've been. They know. The extraterrestrials know. We've been interstellar with the Nazis in the 1940s, and then in the 1950s with the military, right? We've been interstellar for a long time, but it's just been held back from all of us, the slaves, right? Obviously. So what you're looking at is at a massive liberation of a very evil planet that's been run by some of the most disgusting things that ever walked anywhere. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, so this is the beauty we're talking about. So you'll see people talking about, wow, those good looking, extraterrestrials, ha ha. They're just don't even turn the channel when you hear stuff like that. That's nonsense. Those people are silly. They're 3 years old. They need to put their diapers back on. You can have a wonderful, unbelievably loving relationship with a being that is not necessarily what a Nordic. I mean, let's just say that. I don't know. You can have a beautiful relationship with another reptiloid. You could have an amazing, and it's not all about sex, folks, because it's not. I mean, and as Eeka says right now, it's never about sex, and that was they literally just made it a breeding program here on Earth where it is all about sex. It's fruit flies coming together to make more fruit flies, basically. Entropic, screwed up fruit flies. That's what they did on this planet. I'm going to throw that question. I'm not going to I won't let him answer it. I've heard that a couple of times. I mean, people ask, are the people from Era, the Pleiadians from Era, very sexual? And Eeka, I know what he's joking. He's silly. He's of course. No. It's romance. It's different. It's not like, yeah, are there going to be people who are like that? Sure, but I mean, it's not. And we're very open society. It's not. We don't have rules about that. As long as it's again, and everybody's free will. We that's fine. Yeah, they're it's definitely a main. I'm gonna call it love. I'm not gonna call it sex per se, because that's really not. That's frowned upon in our society, but in an expression of love, he's like thank God. He's not like that, folks. He thinks that's not silly. It's very yeah, it's an art form on our planet. But I can't even describe it in relation to anything that would happen here on Earth. It's just completely different. It's nothing like that. And the relationship between men and women on Era is completely different. We're very much, there's none of that weird. I mean, there are extraterrestrial humanoids that don't wear clothes, when they will when they're walking around, but it's not an issue. It's not, you think about many indigenous people on Earth as well. It's just not, it's just weird. Like this is a whole different topic of like the understanding of the body here on Earth is so deeply perverted. It's not, doesn't exist on our planet. So there's no shame. There's no body shame when we do wear clothes, but there's no body shame. And there's no filthy looking at. So, God, how can we describe? I find Eeka absolutely gorgeous. I mean, he's beautiful to me. He's absolutely beautiful. But there's more behind that. That's who he is. I like his personality. I like him. His consciousness is it's bound to mine. Now, does he like females? Yes. I mean, it's a man, folks. Just like I'm a woman. Do I find, to me, but it's not shallow. Like I can see another Nordic who's absolutely gorgeous, and I can see that. And yes, I appreciate his beautiful divine masculine gorgeousness, but I have no interest in him. No, I would cuddle with him. If we were hanging out together, we would cuddle. See, this is how it is on our planet. We hug and cuddle and do these kinds of things, and none of it's ever sexual. There's a complete difference. Most of the time I'm with Eeka, it is not sexual. So that's something I don't know if it's been furthered here. I think it's been suppressed on Earth because they don't want it to be like that. They want it to be gross. I mean, let's just face it. That's the whole point. If you're trying to create a bunch of orcs, you want them to be breeding grossly and, oversexed or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, so the Pleiadians, we are 4D, just like Earth people, where we can go into 5D, and we do have elders that go higher. I've been astrally projected into 6D, which is just beautiful. I mean, wow. Like you can literally like talk to grass. I mean, it's like, wow, that's all I'm going to say. But most of the time we're in 4D, just like you guys. So it's sad, but really what you're looking at is the manipulation of the Earth culture to be unsustainable, to basically self-implode, right? I have a book here you can pick up. It's from a man from Italy. This is a famous book, actually, Stefano Brescia, and the book is called Mass Contacts. And again, what I just mentioned there, information from Eeka, as well as some of my memory. This is echoed by other cultures as well. So these are the W56s, and they're from, I think, I'm trying to figure out where. I have to look this up. If they're out there in the Kepler somewhere. But it's a humanoid race. They had a base in Italy for hundreds of years and more than that, I think. But anyway, Stefano Brescia, the book is called Mass Contacts. I'll put that in the description so folks can find it. And also you can go on YouTube and see interviews with Stefano Brescia. There was tremendous contact, not only in Spain, but in Italy and parts of Europe with not only the UMO, but these other humanoid groups that were living, well, I mean, folks, you all know, of course, there's off-planet people by the thousands, if not even more, living amongst us already. You'd never know it. But these people were doing that, of course, living amongst us then. So one of Brescia's extraterrestrial friends was explaining their culture, and they took Mr. Brescia and many Italians down. This is in the Ascoli Channel region, which strangely enough is where my family's from. I was like, oh, surprise. Anyway, they were talking about the great care that off-planet people, no, I'm going to tell you this great care was taken on Earth as well by the bad guys, but the great care that normal humanoid cultures, civilizations off-planet have for genetics. And he explains to him, he says, to Brescia, physicians never attempt to alter any genetic system. They say that the genetic system is like a karma. It depends on the past of the person. If one alters it, unpredictable effects may result. And that's what you were seeing produced here on Earth, sadly. Another section I'm going to bring up for you, too, is a concept of off-planet morality. And like I said, everything you take with a bit of a grain of salt. They're not perfect upstairs. But yeah, you always want to use common sense and your own discernment when it comes to interacting with anyone. By and large, many off-planet people are fine. I mean, you're going to feel a resonance off them. That's really, really, really lovely. So for sure. But he also mentions here on Earth people, he says he doesn't like our moral filth. He was not at ease with our habit of putting sex above everything. Sex, of course, is a necessary part of the life of everybody, but we often tend to put it in the center of our life, and that's wrong. And of course, the perversion of it as well in these kind of situations. So what Eeka and I came up with for trying to get through this in a way that's not diplomatic. Let's do diplomatic here. Diplomatic. So the concept of love, as the diagram here shows you with the, the DNA, it's a frequency echo. And it resonates not only between two people, but in the generations. So it is a continuation of proper negentropic breeding before you were born to that which you produce and come after. We are always looking at a long-term sustainability of a race in which that race is improved over time, not destroyed. But like I said, the goal with breeding on Earth was to create a race of, orcs, basically, super soldiers, all kinds of stuff like that. When we break it down, so Eeka and I did this today. Like I was just saying, it's just us thinking about stuff. I don't know. Like I said, use your own discernment. But anyway, the patriarchal structure here on Earth, I feel what they were breeding for is a combination of what happened to the Nebu Greys. The Nebu Greys manipulated their DNA and really, I don't know how to, what they thought they were doing a good thing, and by removing emotions, okay, or at least lessening, they felt that some emotions, particularly negative emotions, were tripping up intellectual pursuits and things like that, the way your mind works, cognitive function. They feel like it was somehow negated or held back, impediments. This was very wrong, unfortunately. And now, those of you who are familiar with the Nebu Grays, that they really messed up themselves really, really badly, really bad. They're almost synthetic at this point. So they're just not like other, other grays or like other races per se. They, like I said, they just engineered themselves. I don't know how to describe it. So if you take a look at the Nebu Gray, what happened to them? Plus the reptilians that are the occupiers of this planet, the Draco, right? That not all reptilians are bad. So make sure that this is like the Draco society, the bad guys. When you combine Nebu Gray with Draco society, I think, and Eeka and Mara are on the same page on bingo, you got what they're trying to do here. Create a combination of extreme violence with almost a robotic entity. That's what they were doing to you guys. That's what Earth was going to be. That was the plan. I think part of the plan was to eradicate most of the humans. They're not necessary, but then to create whole legions of like deranged super soldier Draco Nebu combinations, and the hybridization that Eeka saw and that you guys all know about, not only off planet but here on Earth as well. Anyway, so you think about patriarchy, and the great reward for shallow emotions, right? And unfortunately, that was really pressed upon the males. So the Terran male, right? They were rewarded for shallow emotions, not showing emotions, not having emotions like they do have them. So what they were trying to do is then to breed it out. So if you breed with a man who doesn't, who suppressed emotions, that all becomes stamped in the DNA. So I'm going to tell you, any breeding with a man like that is going to be entropic. You cannot possibly create a frequency, a vortice, a balanced. This is all science, folks. I'm not pointing neither of us like you can are like we just want to make sure we're not pointing fingers at anybody, and honestly I feel bad for people who are living this way. If you're a man and you believe all that stuff, or you're suppressing your emotions, your life is hell. I mean, you're living a lie. That's all I'm going to say. As a humanoid, you're a humanoid. That's not, you don't want to be a Nebu, trust me. Pretty sure you don't. You want to just be a robotic slave. Anyway, you're not going to create it's going to stamp the DNA. And this has been going on for centuries, or millennia, actually, be correct here, millennia, So there's a rewarding or an encouragement to objectify everything, to reduce everything to use. And we see that everywhere. And it's using a perverted, dark, almost black magic method of logic to mind control vast numbers of the population, to act in ways that are immoral. And how do you get people to do that? They did it. So what happens in this objectification scenario? You even think about this. This has come down. They're so insidious. I mean, it's literally everywhere. If you look at in workplaces, right? You have human resources. Humans aren't resources. A human is not a resource. But it is, because you're on Earth, and all humans are resources. You are the elite's resources that they are using and abusing, folks. You all know that. Anyway. So the problems here, or the roots, that's more important than the problem. So we know what the problem is, but what is the root of the problem? Then you start to unravel, just like a DNA strand, exactly what the cabal had done. Like, whoa, yeah. So there is in this root, you have this very, very powerful, energetic superimposition of the violent hierarchical Draco society with, if you think about that, the Nazis and the Spartans. So if we go back in history to ancient Greece, I'm just going to use this as an analogy. I mean, what they didn't, well, they did actually. Anyway, if you think of Sparta, right, and all of what Sparta was about, you couple that with the Nazis, and then you add on the Dracos, a little bit of Nebu Gray, you got yourself a nice soup. That's what they did. That's what they're doing, but it's being stopped now because obviously Earth was going to be the Death Star, and it was going to ricochet off into the galactic realm. This incredibly dark, violent alliance of grotesquely regressive Terrans with their masters, the Draco and the Nebu. Well, I'm not gonna say the Anunnaki anyway. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The Anunnaki, and I know people think there's good ones and bad ones, and it's like anywhere in life, there's good ones and bad ones. There is. There's not good and bad, all good and bad, all bad. But the majority of them were pretty bad here. The Anunnaki had deliberately enslaved humanity, and they were some of the first to begin messing with the DNA. So you set the ball rolling. That's what they did. So they got the ball rolling. You play with the DNA, you seed it the way you want it, which is to create an idiot, basically. That's what they wanted to do. So they took away, as you know, most of your inactivated, they didn't take it away. They inactivated a lot of the DNA. Your brain isn't like it's supposed to be. Your longevity isn't what it's supposed to be. You know, your Earth human lives longer than a Hell Pleiadian. Surprise. Yeah, we just get too tired. Yeah, we just get too tired. Yeah, I mean, yeah. You're not supposed to age, folks. That was all this. So what's the point of the aging? Well, you don't want your peasant serfs to linger around. What are you gonna do with them? It's like you just keep them going, keep them breeding each other, regressively to keep enough of the serfs around to do the jobs you want them to do, kind of thing. You don't want them living long enough. Why? Well, two things. You don't want to remember who they are. So you have the soul trap thing, but that's gone, by the way, thank God. And I do believe some of your NDE, near-death experience people, and some of the people who say that they understand the afterlife, I think they were remote viewing the soul traps Anunnaki and the Draco created. I think that's what they were viewing. So, off planet, we can move consciousnesses around. I just call them soul. I shouldn't call them souls. I should say consciousness, because there is no religious affiliation here. I don't have a religion. We don't have a religion on Era. Nothing against humans having religions, but when I talk, I'm not talking about any religions. Anyway, yeah, I think what they're seeing is a soul trap. Anyway, again, that's just an opinion. I don't know, anyway. So what they were doing was using power and domination to force a result or a system that would be self-sustaining, that they didn't have to do. It was brilliant, like I said. So what they wanted was aggression, because you're going to be growing super soldiers, and you also want to create a breeding system of your livestock, when the Terrans were livestock for these beings. Yeah, actually, I mean, people always talk about, now always makes me laugh, and they say, the extraterrestrials, are they good or bad? You've already been under a very, very, very bad extraterrestrial occupation, folks, for a very long time. And I mean nightmare level, beyond nightmare. Your soul you couldn't even kill yourself off this planet. It's that bad. Like the jail system here. Wow. I mean, it's nasty. It is like, yeah, not the only planet, but yeah. So what they were trying to do was create a resonance, right? It's because this is like the Death Star. I mean, this is what it was. So you have aggression, punishment, and shame. Punishment and shame are some of the lowest vibrations you can ever create. And these were superimposed mind control. It's mind control is what it is. Mind control over anyone who attempted to demonstrate empathy or a more complex interaction, right? That's what bred what you see around you. Not everyone, like I said, not everyone, but the vast majority. So when you meet people, and you will, who feel very shallow, because that's what they were bred for. They're like, that's the grace, basically. You know, it's a robot. Some people like the word with an NPC, you know. I don't know if that's real or not. I'm not going to try to say it is, and I don't understand that. So basically a consciousness less, so a soulless, whatever, individual. Um, it's possible. Like I said, I don't know for sure. But what you would notice though in these, so a Nabu Gray has a soul, but they're basically, robots, but they still have a soul. The same thing was happening to a lot of humans on this planet. They're basically robots, but they still have a soul. So that's what the plan was. And how do they do this? Again, like I mentioned, genetics, manipulating DNA, manipulating behavior so that it will then manipulate DNA, manipulating behavior and DNA in breeding programs that rewarded those that were aggressive, that were vapid, that were shallow, that were meh, let's put it that way, to maintain a population that was leaning more and more towards the end goal. So emotions, and it's funny, even the word emotions, you think on this planet, the word of emotions, it's almost a negative word. It's almost a bad word, just like the word love. It's like, is a joke. It has been made a joke. But emotions are the things that the Greys lost, and that's what they're fascinated with, and that's what they're trying to bring back, because they screwed themselves up pretty bad into their system. Now the Draco don't give it; they're not interested in that. The only emotions they're interested in is like, aggression, hierarchy, violence. Certainly the suppression. They were the ones behind the suppression of the female. So, because you got to, in order to maintain this, you have to have unbalanced matings. You cannot have a balanced mating system. It's not going to work if you want to create a regressive race. So that is what they did. So if you look at all you folks, you look at all your media, you look at all your porn, you look at, I'm not preaching to the choir. You know what I'm talking about. It's all in front of your face. They enslaved humanity right in front of your face. Nothing was hidden. This is not hidden. It's right there. So they wanted to really do that, create a hive mind, narrow reactive behavior, destroy that which is in opposition to this. So everything that is in opposition, so all the stuff that is in negentropy, all the stuff that you would probably see on Era or Arcturus or on Venus, right? That was the enemy, because that was the thing that would take down there. Couldn't happen there. What they were trying to do and what they did almost successfully, as we're at the end games now, was to destroy that. Everything in opposition to narrow reactive behavior, to hive mind, to tribalism, that was removed. So that was Eeka and I's attempt to try to talk through the different terms used on this planet for patriarchy, toxic masculinity. I don't know what other terms you guys use here. And it's sad. Like I said, it's just sad. We're not judging it by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it's very sad. He's kind of like, yeah, I don't know what he doesn't really know what to say. He doesn't know what to do, really. It's kind of like this. I don't know what to do either. I honestly don't. It's unfortunate. I think once full contact happens and we move forward, I don't know how that's going to play out. Like I said, remember, it's a military operation. No military gives away its secrets. And I know secrets, people are talking a dime a dozen out there about how this is going to play out. Honestly, I'm sorry to say that's not the case. They have no idea, because they are not, no military organization that is in the end games of a war is going to tell you what they're going to do. That's It's absurd. You can remote view it. That's about it. You can remote view it. And then what you see in the remote view, that's a good guess, right? About something that might, either something that they're thinking about, something that could happen, or something that is going to be prevented to happen. So that's what a remote view does. It gives you an image, a timeline. And then you have to, the only thing, and you look at Farsight and they'll always tell you, the Farsight Institute, the only thing is time will tell you what's going to happen. We can remote view what might be in the ether, but what actually happens is when it happens. So, not, he's laughing, I'm not sure. Like I said, this was our best attempt at this topic. From there on, I'm going to work with Semjase on the women's perspective. So women in Era and possibly the women here on Earth, what was done to females and what wasn't done to females. So the light language I was given for this is on love. And I'm going to end that with that image. And as always, all right, yeah, of course. I mean, we love you, abundance. We want you to have joy. And that's why we're here fighting, is because you Terrans deserve, and those, of course, most, I imagine the majority of people watching this are boots on the ground. You guys are on our side. You're the army. So we're the ones, all of you, every single one of you. we can't lose any troops, folks. Every single one of you is here to assist, to liberate the poor beings on this planet that have been very, very wronged. So we'll end this with a little bit of light language. And as always, I said, blessings and abundance and joy to all.